Hello, welcome. This evening, this is Patrick Dean with Facebook Live. Obviously, I'm right here. I wanted to welcome you, and this is Your Best Life uh, series that we're doing. So here we go. Tonight, I'm going to talk about something that's going to relieve you of some stress in your life. Absolutely and without a doubt. But before we relieve ourselves of some stress, we're going to put a little stress on ourselves by looking at this concept and this idea. And I will tell you in the end that when we have got done talking about this, if you put this into action, you are going to change your experience of your life this week, tomorrow, if you take a look at this in an honest and open way. And I'll tell you, it takes some warrior's courage to put this one into action, what we're going to talk about. Because tonight, what we're going to talk about is your relationship with your word. And for those of you that haven't seen Facebook Live with me before, my name is Patrick Dean. I'm the president of Seminar Systems, and I am a master mentor and coach and work with people all over the world. And I have traveled all over the world and done trainings, seminars for over 30,000 people. And what I'm going to share with you tonight comes from my experience being with people and being in honest conversation and authentic conversations with people. And also, it comes from my looking at myself and my life and the results that I've produced in some areas of my life. So we're really going to take a look at that. I'm going to come clean on some of that stuff. So what we're going to talk about tonight is I really had to look at this and decide whether this was the greatest Facebook Live topic, because I think a lot of us get on Facebook Live where we want to see something that's inspirational and motivational, and that's all great and that's up. But what we're going to work with tonight is what I call transformational. It's absolutely a place we can look at shifting how we see our life so we can create the results that are important to us in our life. So again, most of the problems that I have created in my life, honestly, whether it's lost jobs, I've had a few of those, divorce, I have had one of those, health issues in my life, all of that have stemmed from this idea of my relationship and my word, and it has to do with my agreements. And I will define agreements in a moment. And also working with my amazing clients in my mentoring practice. I notice that we start to straighten this one up right away, this idea of our word, our agreement, and what we're promising, there's immediate results in how things are operating in our life. So if you're a person that's curious, if you're a person that studies, if you're a person that loves transformation, if you like to work on yourself, if you're excited to do something different, you're in the right place on this Facebook Live. It's not going to be very long, but I think the topic here tonight is powerful. So I want to read something to you, and this comes from a man named Ron Smotherman, who is a trainer and an author and written several books on transformation. And this short piece is called Agreements. So here is the piece on agreements. He says, your life works exactly to the degree that you keep your agreement. And an agreement is a promise you make, whether an objective promise, a contract, something written, an objective promise you've made to someone, or the subjective promises, ideas of how we've promised people we're going to be or what we're going to, how we're going to show up, whether either one of those things. The agreement we're going to kind of equate with a promise or something we say that we're going to do. So we'll use that word agreement to mean something that we said we were going to do. So he said the most profound agreements that you make in your life are those that you make with yourself. The purpose of an agreement is to have life work. So the purpose of making promises and agreements is to have life work. That is to derive satisfaction from it and nurture life itself. So he goes on to say, the mind, our ego, whatever you want to call it, our story, wants what it wants when it wants it. And if agreement or a promise gets in the way, the mind will go for breaking that agreement in order to get what it wants. The mind, our mind, will go for immediate gratification at the expense of long-term satisfaction. I think some of you can relate to that. By the way, thank you for my to all your students, all my students in Colombia, and welcome to this Facebook Live. I'm glad some of you are on here. That's awesome. It was awesome doing a training down in Colombia. All right. Anyway, that's a side trip. Back to Ron Smotherman and this article on agreements. The mind will go for immediate gratification at the expense of long-term satisfaction. I think we've all experienced that in areas of our life. Only with intention or commitment can you deal with this idea of the mind and breaking agreements when it's convenient. The only way to long-term satisfaction and fulfillment in life, and the experience of fulfillment in life, according to Ron Smotherman, is keeping our word, keeping our agreement, and keeping our promises. Keep them and be responsible for them, and your life works. Don't keep them and your life doesn't work. It's simple. It's not a game that you play halfway. It's a light switch. It's on and off. So I'm going to repeat that last part. It says keep them, keep your word, keep your promises, keep your agreements, and your life will work. Don't keep them and your life doesn't work. It's that simple. It's not a game that one chooses to play halfway. It's none or all. You are at choice every moment. So what I'd like you to do tonight is to just take a deep breath, sit back for a moment, and think of the areas in your life that you have not kept your word, or, as we say, you're out of agreement in those areas. The idea of being in agreement and keeping your word is so painfully obvious, but it's an amazingly simple and powerful idea. Okay, so look with radical honesty at areas of your life. So let's talk about money and abundance. So money and abundance is that thing that we want to create more, our business life. We want to create more in our lives. So if we look at areas of our life that we haven't followed through or kept our agreements with other people or with ourselves, then this is an area that we would want to very quickly see how we can work toward agreement. And I'll tell you why I think it's important. So as I look at the areas I'm out of agreement in my life, I'm doing some hassling with the IRS, doing some other things with credit cards and working with that around money and all of that, collecting money, that kind of stuff. I'm out of agreement in. What it does is it burns energy. It just burns energy. And that energy could be used for creating more results in your life, to be happier, to be more satisfied, to do some of the things you want to do. But we burn up this energy with this stuff that's almost in the background for us. Maybe we don't even think about it. That's why I wanted to do this topic tonight. So think about something in your life. Maybe it's a credit card that you haven't paid off, or you're late on a payment, or something around a mortgage or something like that. All of that, even though you're not thinking about it consciously every moment, is a burner of energy. And so if we can take a look and list those things down and then adjust our life to bring us back into agreement, what's going to happen is that you free that energy up. And also it takes worry and stress out of the experience of our lives to complete on agreements that are broken. Now, so let's take a look at the idea of health. So some of my great clients were working on getting maximally healthy. And that's around weight. That's around maintaining a healthy lifestyle. That's around designing a life around athleticism or being more athletic. All of that stuff that we're working with. But I think that the person that we break our agreement with the most, especially in this area, is ourselves. Because I love food and I wrestle with the idea of discipline around it. And when I look in the mirror and I go, I'm making a promise to myself that tonight or tomorrow I'm going to eat a certain way or exercise a certain way, I'm making an agreement with myself. If I break that agreement, there is a price to pay. So the price to pay for breaking that agreement around health, especially, or agreements with ourselves, any kind of agreements with ourselves, is it starts to erode confidence and it starts to erode self-worth. So if you're wrestling with confidence and self-worth, you want to take a look at how you're treating yourself or how you're keeping your agreements with yourself. I think sometimes we've talked about this before. You have 30 great things you do in a day, and then you screw up on one thing. Guess what? We think about that one thing when we go home. We're hard on ourselves. And I think it's great to take a look at how we can improve. We're all about that. We're all about accountability in my coaching and work with people. But the other side of that is, how do we treat ourselves? We treat other people often better than we treat ourselves. That's being out of agreement with ourselves. All right, so let's talk about principles and values for a moment, a spiritual side of ourselves. I won't spend much time on this because that's all about choice, but are you compromising in your life some of your principles and values? Have you kind of wandered off the path of what's important to you? And if you have, that means that you have a broken agreement with yourself, and that you would want to put that on the list and go, okay, I'm going to move back toward what's most important to me in my own principles and values. That alignment is called integrity. So operating from your principles and values, taking action from them, and being in alignment with your principles and values, that creates integrity. And that's a powerful thing for confidence as well. And in leadership and to leverage and move with other people, you want to operate from integrity as much as you can. So this may be a small adjustment for you. There may be few things, or for you, you may be sitting there with your slack-jawed looking at this video and going, oh my God, I've been out of agreement here, and now I need to go back and clean this up, which I'm going to talk about cleaning up in a moment. So let's talk about relationship here for a moment. So we've talked about sort of the business and money, and we've talked about health, and we've talked about principles and values. Let's start to finish this one up with our relationships. I think relationships are built on trust. True connection and relationship is built on trust. And the quickest way to create trust is to keep your word. Now, this is objective and subjective. So when you say to a person, I will be here at this time, I will pay you this amount of money, I will work with you in this way, and it's all explained out, or it's a contract, or we're very clear on it, that's an objective agreement. And it's much easier to understand and keep objective agreements than subjective agreements. Now, what's a subjective agreement? A subjective agreement has to do with our way of being. Do you know that we promise people that we're going to be a certain way, that they expect our personality and how we are to be consistent? And so we've made agreement in personality or how we're going to be with people. And once we've made that agreement, that's subjective. That's very, very seldom talked about among people, even people who are married, that there's subjective agreements that we have with each other. So a subjective agreement that I have with my wife is to keep my word and to operate from a place to see that she feels safe, because safety is important to her. Now, she can do everything I do. She can take care of herself very well. But in our partnership, part of what I am there to do is to make sure and to keep her safe, or feeling that she feels safe so she can operate within our relationship and have a wide range of feelings, a wide range of stuff going on, because she's really emotional. She's a powerful woman. And I love being with her when she's in her power. And to do that, she needs to feel safe. So there's some safety stuff that I need to provide. And that's a subjective agreement. It was always subjective until we brought it objective and we really sat down and had a heart-to-heart conversation. So that's one of the things I'm going to suggest here when we get to the end, is that you bring subjective conversations, subjective agreements, and what you expect, to bring them objective, to bring them and to talk about them. And this is some of the work that I do in partnerships too, in business. Partnerships are one of the most difficult business relationships there are, because there's expectations going into the development of a company or working with people about how you're going to be. And when you're excited and starting, it's pretty easy. But when things get into it deeper, you want to really understand each other, what your expectations of each other, what the hours you expect, where the money goes, who hires who, all of that stuff, that little technical stuff, needs to be written down, agreed upon, and in clarity. And I think the more we get clarity in our relationships, the better off we're going to be. So the challenge for you tonight is to take a look at subjective and objective relationship agreements, promises, things that people expect from each other, and have what I call the radically honest conversation with that person you're in relationship with, business partner, brother, sister, mother, father, whoever you're in relationship with, and ask about and talk about what's expected in that relationship. I know it sounds kind of formal, but I tell you, it will save you a ton of problems, and it will also develop something closer in a relationship. All right. So, here's a concept, an idea, and it's going to come in the form of a story. There was a woman who became a Buddhist nun, and she joined the monastery, and she made a pledge and an agreement that she would give away everything that she had to do this study in the Zen monastery. And so she did that. The only thing she had was her robes and her bowl and her spoon and the other really simple things that the Zen monks had and agreed that they could have. However, this nun had this experience from her past about uncertainty. So she didn't know when she didn't want to go hungry. She might need to get out of there or do something or travel somewhere. So what she did was she took a penny and sewed it into her garment so nobody could see it, but it was there in case she needed it. Now she did her Zen study. She did all her reading of the sutras. She did all her meditation. She did her work around the monastery. She became a model Zen student, but she never experienced enlightenment. She got almost to the edge of experiencing enlightenment and just couldn't get there. And in her frustration, she went and saw the master of the monastery. And she said, "I am struggling." And he looked at her and said, "You've got to give away the penny." And she took the penny and gave it away. And in that moment, the story says, she became enlightened. Now, why I tell you that story is because there's a very common way that we handle agreements and promises. And that is, some are more important than others. So we look at that and we go, these are small agreements that I can easily adjust or break. And these are large agreements that I would never break. But this way of thinking I would like to suggest another way of thinking, that every agreement that you have is important and contributes in some way to your integrity or takes away from it. So even the small agreements that we have, you want to look at, can I keep that one? I've made that agreement. Am I going to keep that one? The small agreements, in one way of thinking, are as important as the large agreements in our confidence, in our self-worth, in our ability to lead and work with people. And the more that we can keep all our agreements, the more that we're going to have that quality called integrity. Now, let's talk about, let's do an example here of something. And we've done this in so many trainings, and many of you have experienced this who have been in seminars with me or have worked with me in mentoring and coaching, because I do work with accountability because we really want to accomplish some amazing things. But so let's work with this. So let's say that you and I are business colleagues, and I call you up and I say, let's go to lunch. And you're happy to do that. And I say, I will be there at 12:30 so we can go to lunch together. Then about 12:45, I show up. Now, in the normal way of working with things, what am I going to give you? An excuse or a reason that I was late. Now, I'll come up with something that sounds good. Most of it's like I was caught in traffic or I didn't get out of a meeting or whatever. I'm going to have something, and you will probably go, oh, it's okay. Let's go to lunch, right? Now, again, we had a great time. We have a great time at lunch. We decided we'd go out in a couple of weeks again to have lunch together as colleagues. And I say 12:30, and this time I show up at 12:50. And again, I have another reason. And then I keep doing that every 2 weeks with you. My question to you is, how long will it be before you decide, I don't want to have lunch with this guy? He doesn't respect my time. He comes up with excuses that sound reasonable, but there's something else going on. Now, we don't have to look very far in our life to see where the people in our life have drifted out of our life, perhaps because we haven't kept our word with them. Now, I don't mean to be harsh about this, but reasons are not the same as results. And we wonder why our relationships are not close. So you look at your major relationships, I would challenge you to look at how you are treating those relationships. And look at keeping your word on time, on the small things, as well as the large things. I think there'll be an immediate shift in the area of trust. Now, it takes a while to build trust after you've broken it, but it's possible to do it if you look at and make an agreement with yourself to take a look. Now, you're not going to keep every agreement. Things happen, stuff happens. But what we know is broken agreements have a price to pay. So we do absolutely as well as we can. I mean, I work with the Marine Corps. I've had that experience, and being on time for them is 5 minutes early. There's no fooling around there, and everybody can do it. We can all do that. We can keep our time agreements and then work our way into all the other agreements. So I want to talk about something right now to finish up that I think people don't talk about very much. And that's how to fix up an agreement that's going to be broken and you know it ahead of time. So if I say 12:30 to you and I know before 12:30 I can't make it, I call you and I say to you, I can't make it at 12:30. Will 12:45 be okay? Now listen to this language. Will 12:45 be okay? because I have an agreement with you. I cannot unilaterally break an agreement. I can't just say, I'll be there at 12:45. That's okay. I have to get your agreement. If you say no, then I got to be there at 12:30 or it's a broken agreement. Now take a look at all our relationships. We make assumptions that people understand and that people kind of are okay with all of that stuff. And I think some of the biggest tragedies, mistakes, stuff that's happened that's ruined business or relationship has to do with continual broken agreements and that trust. You can renegotiate your agreements, but you've got to get the permission or the other person in it with you. Now, for most of the time, they probably will get in it. And when you say 12:45, now you have a new agreement. This is called renegotiation, but it must be done before the other agreement is broken. All right. I mean, maybe this sounds very elementary to you, but this is just shown up in even the most powerful leadership trainings I've done with top level business people. This is an issue for people, all this subjective and objective agreements that's being broken. The more that you can bring yourself into alignment with your agreements, the more peace in your life you're going to have, the more simplicity in your life you're going to have, the more trust in your life you're going to have, and that is the result of that. You break agreement, you've got to make amends for it or fix it. That's okay, because if you're out there stretching and if you're out there doing stuff, sometimes that's going to happen. But now, as a result of this, I hope you have a bit more awareness. So, I want to end up by talking to some of you about mentoring and coaching for a moment. That's what I do with people. So basically, what I'm about is about helping you with clarity to identify your purpose or the direction you want to go and what's important to you, to get real clarity on what the step is for you. The next thing is action and then accountability. Clarity, action, and accountability is my coaching. So I want you to think about something you want to accomplish this year, something really important to you, risky perhaps, something exciting for you, something you've always wanted to do or accomplish, and look down there at the screen, and on there, there's something called timetrade.com, and that if you copy that number down, and then you put it in your browser, you're going to come up with my calendar, and we can have a private conversation about what's important to you. I love these conversations, 30 minutes. There's no charge for them or anything. We can talk about what's important to you. Sometimes people just love this one conversation, and that gives them clarity. Sometimes we talk about, and people mentor and coach with me on my 6-month program with guaranteed results. So anyway, that's my pitch. That's my kind of advertising for the evening. And I do want to talk with you. This is no accident. This is in front of you. MyTimeTrade.com book and that number that's right there. So let's get together and talk. Now, again, your homework is to take a look and make a list of broken agreements in your life and starting to straighten it out so you can live with more fulfillment, excitement, and satisfaction. And this is Patrick Dean. I will see you next week at the same time, 6 o'clock Pacific for Facebook Live. And next week, we're going to talk about some amazing qualities that you may want to bring in and train yourself into your life that's going to create some great results. This is Patrick Dean for Seminar Systems and Facebook Live. Love you guys, and I will see you again on the next Facebook Live.